I think ultimately every person in the world is going to have their own currency. And that currency will represent everything from their healthcare to their credit score to their brand affinity to actually even to their identities and their passport and everything else. And now, listen, that's, we're talking 15 years from now, but that's where I think it's going.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. Today I'm excited to have my guest, Mr. Chell, CEO of ICOX Innovations. Today he's joining us to share his thoughts on the global economy as well as his corporation in reference to currencies and the blockchain technology. So Chell, welcome to Rethinking the Dollar.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael. It's a pleasure as always.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to sit down with me today and share your thoughts on what you have going on. Important, before we dive into that, I'm curious to find out your thoughts on a variety of subject matter. But before we head down that pathway, can you give us, those of you that are watching us, a little bit of your background and how you arrived at the founder and CEO of ICOX Innovations?
Sure, thanks. Well, I've been fortunate enough to be a serial entrepreneur for about 25 years. Had lots of ups and downs through that time. But myself, along with a crew that have been together for 20 years. A little bit on and off at times, but generally 20, 25 years, some of us, we're really passionate about building things that are just really cool and innovative. So we've done everything from build environmental drilling rigs for the likes of, and partnered with the likes and have investment from Halliburton's of the world, right through to having put cameras on the outside of the International Space Station for Earth observation, to having built some of the largest payment systems for the offshore gaming space. Back in the day. So we've got a varied experience, and a number of us have a couple of okay exits as well, but we're really passionate about building product. And when we saw the advent of blockchain and its potential use in currency, we quickly got excited about what this potentially could mean within the regulated markets. So we didn't really have an overall affinity for what was happening in the ICO market, the alternative currencies fundraising market, which is why we called our company ICOX. It's exponential beyond that, and we're very regulatory focused. And we believe that what we're now seeing out there is something that we've been working towards for 5 or 6 years now, is the creation and adoption of custom digital currencies by very large organizations. And really, it's an extension of what happened when we started to see private payment rails coming in. The advent of the PayPals of the world, which are now very pervasive throughout the entire economy. PayPal, Venmo, you and I can send money to each other. Corporations can accept payments on their websites and such via those systems. And this is like the next evolution of that lowers costs and actually brings a bunch of that functionality in-house to these very large economies, like the Facebooks or the JP Morgans or the Starbucks, all who have announced these types of coins. So we build those coins for other people. And like I say, it's 5 years ago, it seemed like a really stupid idea. And today it's maybe not obvious yet, but we think over the next 6 months, it'll be very obvious that this is where the economy and large corporations are heading.
Understandable. Now, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. And so one of the things here, Rethinking the Dollar, it's geared towards educating people on financial sector. And I like how you're utilizing the blockchain and creating currencies for organizations. But I'm interested in getting your thoughts on how we've actually arrived at this point to where this becomes such an in-demand sector. And so what comes to mind when Chell hears the words rethinking the dollar?
Yeah, to me, what comes to mind is customization. Complete and total personalization of currency. I think ultimately every person in the world is going to have their own currency. And that currency will represent everything from their healthcare to their credit score to their brand affinity to actually even to their identities and their passport and everything else. And now, listen, that's we're talking 15 years from now, but that's where I think it's going. So what we're seeing now is some of the early evolution of that, where we see large corporations putting in their own digital currencies, again, all within the regulatory purview of the existing regulatory and regulators infrastructure. so that they can have that customization. So the currency that that Microsoft might create for themselves, and how it works within their supply chain, could look something like this, like how they pay Hewlett Packard, or how they pay certain value-added resellers, or the discounts they give, large customers compared to foreign customers, or whatever it may be, is all 100% custom, and quite frankly, based on AI that drives their margin and their volume. So if you will, right down to an individual consumer, say a number of years from now, the currency that you have, the Michael currency compared to the Cameron currency, we might be buying the exact same product at the exact same store or online at the exact same day, and your pricing, rewards, and benefit might be a lot different than mine. And the reason it might be different isn't because they value you different or more, but it's maybe because you have affinity or affiliates in other places that can also drive revenue for them. The AI will look very, very deeply into what it means to give you a discount or to reward you in certain ways as opposed to rewarding me in certain ways. And this is all made possible because of blockchain and smart contracts. And removing that third party, that physical person in the middle that has to act as a trust agent, and in doing so can't really make the analysis of what's best for one party or the other. So you have this impartial layer of immutability and trust that's put in place that can then, the data from that can then be analyzed to maximize the transaction in terms of reducing the friction, but also increasing the most amount of benefit. So listen, I know that's a big mouthful, but that's where we see this going, and the impact that it is going to have on the global economy in terms of reducing friction really will be, in our opinion, the fuel for the next kind of 25 years of economic growth. This will be growth that will increase liquidity into all economies without driving inflation.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, you hit on a couple things within that explanation there. You mentioned trust, and you mentioned removing third parties. And a lot of, I believe, the blockchain technology has really taken off because of what's happened over the last decade, give or take the Great Recession and the development of the blockchain/cryptocurrency sector. Now, you mentioned removing third parties, and one of the biggest issues I think the public is starting to experience and have is in relation to fiat currencies and monetary policy, and how they've begun basically ramping up the printing press and creating these digits and debt and things of that nature. How will blockchain truly disrupt the removal of third party, i.e. government manipulation of currencies?
Yeah, so look, I think it's a progression, right? So if maybe let's use the example of JP Morgan. So JP Morgan has announced the JP Morgan coin. They've got a blockchain that moves institutional money for their large clients throughout the world at a fraction of the cost of what it used to cost them to move money internally. And it's instant, it has great transparency, and it has all those benefits. The reason JP Morgan did this was not because they want to lose control of the process. So there's been heavy criticism by the blockchain and the currency, the cryptocurrency purists, saying, hey, this is just a centralized system, right? That's using decentralized technology to drive down costs. But that is the evolution. Like, you're not going to see centralized governments or large organizations relinquish that power in order to completely disrupt or destroy their business or what's been created. However, the thin edge of the wedge is that the technology is so effective that it allows these organizations to implement it and immediately see benefit by dropping costs or having better data or provide better rewards or loyalty, or et cetera, et cetera. So that's really step one, and that's what we see unfolding now with Starbucks and JP Morgan and Facebook and so on and so forth. I think we will see other use cases, maybe in smaller organizations who are looking to be more competitive, or collectives, if you will, or I'll call it colonies, communities, if you will, or smaller governments that either don't have as much to lose or are looking for a competitive advantage in order to provide a totally decentralized system, and that will attract a certain customer set. I don't think it's headed for mainstream adoption soon. And the reason I don't think that is, I think it's very important, and I think it's going to play a bigger and bigger role in society, because I think it's really a societal issue, not necessarily an economic one, just my opinion. So I think it's going to play a bigger role as we move forward. However, if we look what we do have, let's say here in the United States, we have a monetary policy that's centrally managed. And that centrally managed monetary policy has provided an incredible economic environment for entrepreneurs and for people to generate wealth and so on and so forth. Now, is it a perfect system? By no means is it a perfect system. And is it corrupt at times and all the rest of it? It is. But it is still the best system that we have in the world. And much of the policies and stuff that were put in place weren't necessarily, I'm sure some were, but weren't necessarily put in place to control the people. Right? A lot of them were put in place and evolved as consumer protection mechanisms. So you've got such heavy KYC, know your client and anti-money laundering rules and source of funds, to protect against things like terrorism or protect against things like money laundering and stuff. So there's a blend there. So while the purists may have a view that this can all be solved, just by going pure blockchain and removing all the third-party people. I think it's a bit naive as to the destruction and the chaos that would also cause, and the quality of life and safety that would reduce for most people. Sure. So I think we will, look, all the things do blend to reducing friction. And so, I think these worlds are merging, and we're starting to see that unfold in what we see right now in the corporate world.
Right, understandable. Now, as you were explaining that, some things came to mind in reference to how I know that there's this, amongst the younger population, there's this push for adoption. And so everyone's assuming and hoping that one day, I guess the original cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, will one day surpass, the all-time highs and things of that nature, and really bring cryptocurrency to the mainstream. Now, in reference to the whole blockchain sector, there's also the idea of tokenization. And so here at Rethinking the Dollar, a lot of people here are gold and silver bugs as a part of diversifying against the monetary system. So they're new to the blockchain. So what are your thoughts on, where we're going as far as tokenization, linking gold, silver to the blockchain? Is that also an option as well, in your opinion?
Yeah, I really think it is. So I think Bitcoin, is like real estate. It's going to keep going up. It's going to have juxtabouts and ups and downs and all the rest of it. But 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot higher. 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 50 years from now, people aren't going to believe that you could buy California coast, real estate for $25 an acre, and now it's $2,000 a foot. Like it's, to me, it's the underlying technology and the use cases around Bitcoin, not just blockchain, but Bitcoin, and its forks like Bitcoin Cash and stuff like that are going to create value and create transaction utilization, if you will, of Bitcoin. I don't think it's in its current form, it's not a great transaction mechanism because of the fluctuation and you need a 16-bit encryption code, and it's just not user friendly. Yeah. So while we see the younger generation, pushing for the idea of Bitcoin, we're not seeing huge adoption and utilization yet. Because it's just difficult. So what we've done at ICOX is we've created an interface for these organizations that are customers in order to, it's as easy as using Venmo, and you're using a cryptocurrency. You don't have 16-bit encryption code. You have to make this thing usable on a phone and quickly to make it transactable. It needs to be stable, and all those types of things. So that's just my view on our view, on Bitcoin and as a transaction mechanism and where we see the market going. In terms of tokenization, the same thing. 5-7 years from now, there's nothing that won't be there. There is not anything that will not be tokenized. And it may not come in the form of the great revolution of tokenization. It may be just a little bit subtle where, again, it just makes so much sense. Like why would I have a stock cert that's not tokenized, where I can also very easily, on my phone, totally immutable, with a face recognition, be able to vote my stock. You can't do that unless you've got, a blockchain infrastructure supporting it, and it's tokenized in some method. Yeah. And so whether it's real estate assets, or whether it's a stock cert, or whether it's gold or silver, you can tokenize it now because it is immutable. You don't have to, it's sitting, in some form in the bank somewhere that I've never seen, but I'm trusting this, process in this world out there that it actually is there, rather than, just knowing that I've got it right there. It's tokenized, it's immutable, and all that friction in there to know that it's actually mine and the real value exists, all that friction is going to go away. So I'm a big fan of it. I just think there's a realistic evolution of how we're going to get there. Now,
before we get into your company, ICOX Innovations, I'm curious to get your thoughts, because I'm learning. And so a lot of the viewers here, as I mentioned, they're more precious metals individuals. So I want to really make sure they're thoroughly understand what we're getting into here. And so I know, and also let me know your thoughts on this. We have a lot of financial institutions that are looking to get into this space of blockchain / cryptocurrency. So there's news of BACT, BAKKT coming out, and all the Fidelity Asset Management. So they're getting involved now. And so I assume that there will also need to be some type of regulation along with that. What are your thoughts on how that might kind of impact ICOX's innovations as far as creating digital currencies for organizations, as you guys do, in regards to the street cryptocurrency, that Litecoin, Bitcoins that people use? Could that kind of cause issues, you think, perhaps in the private sector for you, for example?
Oh, for sure. Listen, when we built the Kodak coin, or as when we announced it, we had a regulatory purview of where we thought this was going to go, and we announced it. And I remember the Kodak stock went crazy, and we received a lot of criticism because we were going down a regulatory path at the time, and people really didn't understand what an ICOX is instead of just a plain ICO. And we're really all about building the underlying technology and company that generates the revenue, which we did with the image platform there. So notwithstanding all that, we now see very large organizations, many of who you just mentioned, are going down this path, and they're doing it within the existing regulatory framework. There is a framework there that allows for these currencies to become fungible with fiat and usable in the original concept that they were. I just kind of feel that the original concept of what these altcoins were actually a bit got hijacked by people that wanted to use it to raise money. And I think that really escapes a lot of people. Like, before ICOs were used to raise money, ICOs were designed to float a currency or reward coin, if you will, in order to reward people for, and use within closed networks, all of which there's very clear regulation that you can work with. So that said, I do think that the market is evolving quickly, and we have seen some regulatory moves in order to be actually quite accommodating for these currencies. So as it relates to what ICOX is doing, everything that we built is stablecoin based, and we have our money transmitter license. We're integrated with the federal banking system. We do, it takes a lot of work and a lot of resources and infrastructure in order to build these things that they can be compliant, but they can be compliant. And when you do it and they're able to be mainstreamed, the size and scope that they can take on is exponential, again, compared to, say, what the original altcoin or not the original, but kind of the hijacked original iteration of them was. So I think we're going to continue to see more and more large organizations move into this, and I do think that the mainstream population's going to get comfortable with using them.
Right. Now, you mentioned large organizations, and so, of course, mainstream news everywhere is about what Facebook is doing and the global coin. And I imagine sooner or later, every global or international institution will end up adopting their own currency for their own advantages or whatnot. And so what are your thoughts about Facebook, given that it's, I think 2-point-something billion people, it can be interconnected amongst this type of currency, assuming that's a stable coin as well? And what are your thoughts on that? And so I'm assuming that's going to be the future moving forward. And it's good that innovation, ICOX will be in on that as well. So give us your thoughts on Facebook and how that might really impact this and improve and bring this more to the forefront.
Yeah. So, from our certainly it's awesome. Like, it's just the absolute network effect and power of what Facebook is putting together here is awesome. And I think there's a few things driving it. I think they're looking for a response to Apple Pay, Google Pay, et cetera, because they don't have a response for it. And yet it's probably the most connected company in the world. It probably has, if they could provide a payment rail or a transaction rail to, their 2 billion plus users, it's I've seen some crazy estimates that the overnight value could be as high as $19 billion in very short order. So it's an awesome move. It's very, very bold on their part. It will be a stable coin. It'll be transactable. I don't think it'll be mineable. There's very small amount of information out on it. Just yesterday, they announced that Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and Uber are all investing $10 million and going to be sitting as part of a governance board for the coin. And I think this is Facebook's attempt to really start to drive adoption and credibility around the coin. I think Facebook wants to, answer the Google Pay, Apple Pay, questions and competitive scenario that they've got to in that regard. But I think the second thing that they want to do is, and they want to monetize their entire database, but overall they want to do it in a credible way where obviously people can shop and pay with the global coin across the Facebook network and beyond. They can transfer money between all those individuals for a relatively very small amount of fees compared to what traditional networks would cost. But ultimately where I think this is going to go is they want to be able to pay you for your data. And that is the big thing that they need to be able to do. If we look at it, I've done, not deep enough, but if I look at really where the potential antitrust and, congressional challenges and fears are coming from is like, what, you and I are, there's a sense that you and I are getting taken advantage of because they're monetizing our data, maybe utilizing it in a way that is legal and disclosed, but is really not how we understand it. So they need a mechanism to start to pay us for that. And they're not going to do it by sending, fiat dollars around. They're going to do it by instantly being able to reward you for your activity on their social network instantly, and then hopefully recapture those dollars with the rest of their advertisers or their participants. That's where this is really going, in my opinion. And it's an awesome example of the power of blockchain and of digital currencies.
Right, understandable. Now, so let's dive a little bit into ICOX innovations. I'm curious to find out more in-depth information. So give us a little bit of the genesis of how it originated, and just go back to the beginning and what really got you on board with utilizing blockchain to help create currencies for organizations. That's very unique because I'm a small organization myself, but yet I always thought about hopefully one day I can get my currency created. And so give us a little bit of the beginnings. If you don't mind.
And in a number of years, everybody's going to have their own currency, in my opinion, because there's unique value that's highly leverageable and highly valuable that you bring that nobody else can bring in the world because of the number of connections, the type of work, your family, it's incredible. It's a perfect fit for you in some way to be a customer or to be a vendor or a supplier to somebody. And these currencies are going to be able to discover that and reward that for you and with you. So how we kind of got started is a number of our partners have really deep payment experience. And one of the strategic differentiators that they very successfully rolled out in a previous payments company was the KYC and AML functionality. So much so that it really allowed one of the organizations that we were deeply involved with to become a really global powerhouse in the payment space. So when we saw what was unfolding in the crypto space and these exchanges out there that were trading, Bitcoins and Ethereum, et cetera, we immediately and naively thought, my gosh, these people need to have KYC AML because how are they moving all this money? Like we understood the rules and the regulatory environment. So we built what we thought was a great KYC AML platform that we approached a number of the very large and well-known exchanges with, who very enthusiastically looked at it and very enthusiastically said, this is so cool, but we're not interested really. Like this is not what we're about. And this was this is like 2012, 2013. And in our view, we felt that, and not that they were wrong, they're very smart people, and a lot of them have done it so well, financially and business-wise and on lots of levels. But it just wasn't something that caught on. And so we really started to understand that, wow, this entire industry is missing, or maybe people haven't considered and thought about the bigger picture here about, well, what does this technology look like as a currency when it's mainstreamed and it's within the regulatory environment? Because as interesting and dynamic as that unregulated environment was, the regulated environment is prolific compared to the size of that environment. And so that's really where we've tried to focus. And so, our knowledge and understanding and business model has evolved, to what it is today, to where, we're kind of like building on our dream of being able to create digital currencies, that reduce friction in the economy and increase liquidity without driving inflation, and being able to do it with the largest, type of companies in the world. So it was a bit of an evolution, but the bigger picture is what we're doing today. And so again, that's a mouthful, but that's, we kind of build big projects, and hopefully they come to fruition like this one.
Yeah, understandable. Now, in regards to the organizational currencies that you're referring to, can you give us some examples of how the currencies can be utilized within the organization? Would it be for like payroll or for market shares into the organization, or just give us some rundown of how a corporation can use a currency for itself?
Sounds great. So primarily right now, organizations are using them to reduce costs. So if you're an organization and you need to move money between your supply chain, or JP Morgan is kind of an obvious example. It's not really their supply chain, it's for their customers. But if I had to move money between my thousands of vendors and suppliers and payables and all the rest of it, and it was able to be on a blockchain, and then the payment was instant and it was sent. It was just a debit and credit that was moving back and forth on a spreadsheet. It's not really a spreadsheet, but and that's it. And the money's moved and credit and everything's just flowing, as opposed to it running through my accounts payable or my accounts receivable department and somebody else verifying the invoice and checking on my vendor terms with this company as opposed to that company, and then it getting around and somebody sending out a wire, or a check, like. We're seeing so big application in supply chain management as it relates to the currency. We're not seeing it so much in payroll right now. I think that's got a different set of regulations and stuff that are going to have to be addressed before that really truly gets adopted. The other area that we're seeing it is on the consumer side. And so organizations that say, they've got an online commerce site, you can pay by Visa, you can pay by MasterCard, you can pay by PayPal, or you also want to pay by, your Litecoin. Right. And if you pay by Litecoin, which is really a Nike wallet, it's also a coin that can be used, across its entire affiliate network. And this is just an example. We're not doing a deal. We haven't signed a deal with Nike or anything. So so you can use it across everybody that does business with Nike or that wants to affiliate with that Nike coin, which might be the Starbucks coin, right? That would be an example. And you get a discount for using that coin. Now, why would Nike give you a discount for using it? Well, because they're saving transaction fees by not paying them out to the Visa, the MasterCard, or the PayPal. They're not going to not use Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. This is just another alternative. They also get a closer handle on the data that's being utilized. So rather than the Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, or payment processors having that data, you now have that data to be able to apply your AI to determine how can you better reward and the loyalty of those particular customers at hand. So those are really the two use cases that we see driving the market today, and a couple of ways in which we think the Fortune 5,000 or 10,000 are going to be quickly adopting use of their own currency.
All right. Now let's get into some details in regards to some clients you currently have and some projects you're currently working on. And so I just went on your website not long ago, and I guess gunbrokers.com is a recent company you guys are working with. Am I correct?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting project. So we were approached by gunbroker.com, and we were really compelled by the project because of their desire to ensure that there were safe gun transactions, which is something that's super close to a number of us for a lot of reasons. So what we were able to accomplish with gunbroker.com is we've developed what's called the Freedom Coin. And the Freedom Coin will live and exist on the Gunbroker site, which does well over $600 million a year in transactions. And when somebody signs up for the Freedom Coin on the site, they get their Freedom Coin wallet. They can populate their wallet with the Freedom Coins, dollar for dollar into a Freedom Coin. And then they can be assured of an electronic transaction on the Gunbroker site. So about 60%, 40 to 60%, depending on the month, transactions on that site are actually completed by money order or check, if you can believe it, which is just completely archaic. But that in large part is due to the financial industry kind of turning its back on the firearms industry. But for whatever good reasons or not that they have, it has inadvertently created an environment for a potentially less safe gun transaction. An electronic gun transaction, especially when it's on an immutable blockchain, really tracks that purchase and ensures the immutability of the actual data at hand. Now, so what's the benefit to that community? That 4.7 million members, monthly active users that are on Gunbroker, who are very passionate, many of them, avid Second Amenders. Why would they subject themselves to something that is perceived to be more tracking? But what this is it's not more tracking, it's just more reliable tracking. So it's information that becomes immutable, and because of that, you can do an electronic transaction within the regulatory framework, and the regulators have assurance that this thing is being done properly. And that's really what's at hand here for GunBroker. So when you sign up for that wallet, in about a 3-minute process by inputting the last 4 digits of your social security number, your cell phone number, and your email address, not only are all the financial regulations of KYC and AML and OFAC and SDN, which are everything from know your client and source of funds, anti-money laundering law, et cetera, but also all your background checks on a per state basis are done, right? And they're combined, right? So now that member, right, that one of those 4.7 million monthly active users on GunBroker has had a great customer experience. They have a lower cost of transaction to do something electronically. They're not being judged by the Visa, MasterCards of the world and wondering if their credit card is going to go through or not through, or go to the bank and get a money order, or down to the post office, which is great, or send a check, or like, it's just like, boom, I transacted. I'm a normal human being, and I've got an immutable track record, and I still have $500 in my wallet, and GunBroker's rewarding me because they see the types of transactions I'm doing, and I'm a good law-abiding citizen. And so, like, it's just normal business, but it creates a safer gun transaction. So it's been a really exciting project for us to participate in, and we've really enjoyed working with the good people at GunBroker that have just incredible ethics and standards as it relates to this industry.
Understand. That does sound like the blockchain, in that case there, makes it a lot easier and smoother for people to actually get involved in GunBroker, because prior to now, I wasn't really even aware of it myself. But one thing that caught my attention was that the Catholic Church. And so you guys are doing a project along with the Catholic Church. Explain that to me.
Yeah, so this is actually a project within a community within the Catholic Church. Now, a very well-placed and strong community within the Catholic Church. That includes former senators and ambassadors and stuff like that. And what they really are, they're endeavoring to do is to provide a system of, basically the quote-unquote the PayPal for the Catholic community, which will allow money, peer-to-peer money movement. It will allow for the funding of disaster relief efforts. It will allow for the funding of their parishes and their archdioceses, and et cetera, et cetera. But it will also allow that community to pay for their school tuitions, for their hospitals, for to support their Catholic community in whatever way that's appropriate. It's important to note that community is the largest hospital system in the world. It's the largest school system in the world. It's the largest relief agency in the world. So it all kind of it all kind of happens haphazard, right? And they've certainly had their scrutiny. So there's a strong community within that community that really would like to see the financial matters, not be necessarily trusted by a third party, but rather on a blockchain where people really can track where that money's gone, and it's got to the right places, and it's really, not subject to high fees, et cetera, et cetera. And it's electronic. So the millennial generation that's coming up knows how to embrace this and use it as well. So it's a very exciting project to work with, because it's incredibly impassioned people who are committed to doing good out there. And I think it's a fantastic use case as well.
Now, in regards to ICO innovations, you guys have a very fine niche as far as you actually been the bridge between the new technology of blockchain and older organizations. And so are you guys, like one of the first, or are you guys, is it a very competitive sector you guys are in, or where are you guys currently at amongst your competitors, if there are some?
Yeah, we haven't seen any direct competitors as of yet, but there's certainly ancillary competitors, and you might even call the Visa, MasterCard, PayPal's as they wouldn't call us a competitor, I'm sure, but we're in that same kind of space, or payment processors maybe considered somewhat competitive. We'll certainly see people come up and want to be competitive with us. I mean, anytime that you've got the size of organizations that we're lucky enough to be working with, spending considerable dollars, in order to build digital currencies that really have a huge impact on their entire business. Other people are going to be going after a piece of that wallet share, if you will, as well. So we'll see the large consulting firms come into this business. We'll see the IBMs come into this business for sure. I'd highly suspect that some of them will be partnering with us, given the amount of experience that we have and such. We certainly hope that that's the case, and confident that's on its way. So we kind of in 5 years from now, we would hope to be the Microsoft or the Oracle of the computer business, if you will. So we're really part of the operating system and establishment within being, the digital currencies interoperating and being developed on a constant basis. So,
Understandable. Now, you guys are a publicly traded company. Give us some of the details of where you guys are trading at, the size, the market cap, things of that nature, so
Yeah,
people
you
can
bet. So,
understand you guys are.
yeah, sorry. So we trade on both the Toronto Venture Exchange, up on the Canadian market, and also on the OTC here in the United States. Our symbol on both exchanges is ICOX, which is the same as our name, ICOX Innovations at ICOXinnovations.com, and the symbol is ICOX. So, and again, it's because this is an exponential leap above what that ICO market, kind of got hijacked to be as compared to what it really was meant to be, and ultimately what it will be.
Well, Cameron, it's been great having you join us here on Rethinking the Dollar. I definitely am more enlightened into the blockchain space and definitely see the promise behind it, and really excited about the idea that I personally myself might have my own individual currency in the future. So definitely I might use that as the title of this interview here. And so other than that, any last thoughts you want to leave us with in regards to how people can find out more about how to get involved, where to stay in touch with what you guys have going on, and just connect with you guys?
Yeah, you bet. So you can find us at ICOXinnovations.com. That's ICOXinnovations.com. Our stock symbol is ICOX. We're a very small company. We're very much under the radar screen. We have an extremely strong board governance regime and individuals. I think we have a fantastic management team. I'm totally biased in that regard, with a lot of experience. And I think we're well placed. The reason that we're public, even though it's very early to be a public company, is because we wanted to demonstrate our regulatory capabilities and our regulatory regime, such that we've got full transparency. You can't talk and preach regulation unless you can demonstrate that you've got that. So that's why we're public, and we definitely we think we'll be one of those companies that will do very well. We've had some exits in the past where they're multi-billion-dollar exits, and this organization feels like it's the exact same thing. You just sense the pent-up demand coming from customers and the opportunity in front of us.
Well, sounds good. So, Cameron, I appreciate you joining us here on Rethinking the Dollar. Looking forward to staying in tune with what you guys have going on at ICOX Innovations. And as always, information can be found beneath this video here for those that are interested in finding out more information directly. But good luck with everything, and I wish you guys the best and moving forward, and definitely excited to see how this whole currency blockchain situation continues to grow and just provide opportunities for a lot of people. So once again, thank you for joining me on Rethinking the Dollar.
Michael, thank you. Your show is great, and we appreciate the opportunity to be on it.